Welcome to chapter 26 of the book of Genesis. Isaac deceives Abimelech. I'll read a little in the Greek, and we'll go through the chapter. Egeneto they limo sapi tigis, horis tu limu tu proteron, os egeneto ento chrono tu Avram. Eporevti they Isaac pros Avimelech, Vasilea Philistim is Gerara. And there became a famine upon the land, separate from the famine formerly, which happened in the time of Abraham. And that goes back to when Abraham went to Egypt, and then later he went to Philistim, to this Abimelech, and he pawned off his wife Sarah to be his sister because he was afraid that the people of the land would kill him to get his wife. And so here it says, and Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines in Gerara, the same name, and we'll find two other names that were the same as what appeared in the story with Abraham. Now, some people would say, well, they're the same thing, except they changed the name from Abraham and Isaac. But here, it makes it separate. There became a famine upon the land, separate from the famine formerly, which happened in the time of Abraham. So it's saying this did happen at a later time. Now, how close it was to the Abimelech, if it's the same Abimelech, it could be a different name. Abimelech may be like a title like Pharaoh. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know if anybody really is. But anyway, it's a very similar story we have here. And it continues in verse 2, and the Lord appeared to him and said, you should not go down into Egypt, but dwell in the land whichever I should tell you, and sojourn in this land, and it will be with you, and I will bless you. For to you and to your seed I will give all this land, and I will establish my oath, which I swore to Abraham, your father. So he's telling him to go to the land of Philistia, which today is the Palestinian territory on the Gaza Strip, that this is their land, and he will bless them. For to your seed I will give all this land, and I will establish my oath, which I swore. Now, what was the oath? Well, if we go to Genesis 15:18, we says, to your seed I will give this land from the river of Egypt, that was the Nile, unto the river of the great Euphrates up in Syria. So this is the land that Isaac was to inherit. And I will multiply your seed as the stars of the heaven, as he said with Abraham, and will give to your seed all this land, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed by your seed. The seed that the Bible talks about, we have the seed of Abraham, starts it off. Galatians 3:16, it says, and to Abraham the promises were spoken, and to his seed. And he says, not to the seeds as unto many, but as unto one, saying, and to your seed, which is Christ. Now, this is what Paul is saying, that the seed is Christ. But then in Galatians 3:29, it says, and if you are of Christ, then you are of the seed of Abraham, because we believe, not because we were born into it, not because I was born and my mother went to the Lutheran church. That doesn't mean I'm a seed of Abraham. It's a belief. And then in Hebrews 2:16, the writer says, for not in any way does he, that is Jesus, take hold of angels, but the seed of Abraham he takes hold of. Now, this was all the seed of Abraham. Now, Isaac, and it says in Romans 9:7, and not that all children are seed of Abraham, but in Isaac a seed shall be called to you. Now, the other seed was Ishmael from Abraham, but the seed was not to be through Ishmael, which was Jesus. It's good to come through Isaac. Now, the Muslims, which are sort of the seed of Ishmael, the Arabs, claim to be children of Abraham. But we'll see that not as, yes, and in a way it is, but in other ways it's not always the case. But what other seed is there? Is the seed of David. It says in Romans 1:3, Paul says, concerning his son, as Jesus, the one born of the seed of David, according to the flesh. So Jesus was of the seed of David. And then God, the seed of God. In 1 John 3:9, it says, John says, anyone engendered of God does not commit sin, for his seed abides in him. That is, God's seed abides in him. And he is not able to sin because he has been engendered by God. So the seed, and we are of the seed of Abraham as believers. We're not, unless you're a Jew, you're not of the seed of Isaac. You could be of the seed of Ishmael and believing in Jesus as the seed of Abraham. If you're a Muslim that becomes a believer in Jesus, which some are. And it continues in verse 4, and I will multiply your seed as the stars of the heaven. I will give your seed all the land. And I read that already. And all the nations of the earth shall be blessed by your seed, and that's us. Now, this is through Isaac. And so Jesus came through Isaac, through David, and then Jesus was born through David from Isaac. And so now we have many nations believing in Jesus. So indirectly, then we are blessed. We are seed of Isaac spiritually through Jesus. 26:5, because Abraham, your father, obeyed my voice and guarded my orders and my commandments and my ordinances and my laws. And this is why Isaac was blessed, because his father Abraham was one who did all these things. He guarded God's orders. Now, he didn't have a law, and his commandments, whichever they were that God told Abraham to do, he did, his ordinance and my laws. But there was no law yet. And so it's interesting that it would say here, your father Abraham obeyed my voice and guarded my orders. Which ones were they? It doesn't really say specifically. In verse 6, and Isaac dwelt in Geraris, that was in Philistia. And the men of the place asked concerning Rebekah, his wife. So Isaac now has gone over to the Gaza Strip area with Rebekah, his goods and so forth, family. And so he replies to these men, he said, she is my sister, for he feared to say that she is my wife, lest at any time the men of the place should kill him on account of Rebekah, for her appearance was beautiful. Same excuse that Abraham, his father, gave in deceiving these people. And he, Isaac, became long-lived. There is a word you can add to your English derivatives book, polychronios. Poly is many, and chron, time, chronology. Long-lived, there, long time. And with Avimelech, and there's the Greek pronunciation instead of Abimelech, Avimelech, the king of Gerar, leaning over through the window, he beheld Isaac playing with Rebekah, his wife. Now, what he was doing doesn't say, but It was obvious there was closeness to him. Avimelech could figure that out. And Avimelech called Isaac and said to him, "Well, so indeed, is she your wife? Why is it that you said she's my sister?" And Isaac said to him, "For I said it, lest at any time I might die on account of her." And Avimelech said to him, "What is this you did to us? Is it a small thing if someone of my kind went to bed with your wife, and you brought upon us a sin of ignorance?" Now, whether or not this belief of Avimelech, I don't think it was in Ahava, that it was in the God that they may have had there. Still, it was a sin to do what he was doing as far as taking another man's wife. And Avimelech gave orders to all his people, saying, "Anyone touching this man and his wife will be liable unto death." Whoa. And Isaac sowed in that land and found in that year barley bearing 100-fold. So he was a farmer. And the Lord blessed him. And the man was exalted and was advancing greatly, until of which he became exceedingly great. And there became to him herds of sheep, herds of oxen, many farms, and the Philistines envied him. It's interesting as you look at Israel today, it has so much of everything, and the poor Palestinians are living in the poverty in the Gaza Strip. And you think that they would see there's something going on here. Allah is not doing anything great for them, because the God of Israel is doing to his people Israel as he sees fit. Not that I think that Israel is some type of a godly nation, but yet God is tied into Israel. He will be forever. And Israel is a special thing in progress, let's say. It constantly is changing from the beginning, and then the believing, and then walking away from God through the wilderness experience, coming back to him when Mount Sinai, getting the law, obeying all the laws, and then going through all the judges and wanting to leave Eala, and then later becoming a powerful nation through David and Solomon, and then from there on it went all the way down to Nebuchadnezzar conquered them, took all the Jews out, then they brought them back. Some of them came back, built a nation up again until the time of Jesus, and then they crucified Jesus, and then God took them out for 2,000 years, and now they're back in Israel. And this, it just keeps going one way and the other, and I don't think it's going to stop. Right now, it looks like Israel is being blessed, and the Palestinians, who are very poor, are not in good shape, but yet things can happen quickly. And we'll see what happens as time goes on here. Now it continues in verse 15, "And all the wells which the servants of his father dug," ben Abraham, the Philistines obstructed them in the time of his father. So Abraham, when he was there, dug wells, but they filled them up. For whatever reason, I don't know. That means that the land, they couldn't come and get the water because the well was no longer available to them and their herds. And they filled them with earth. And Avimelech said to Isaac, "Go forth from us, for you became exceedingly mightier than us." He had all these farms and wealth, but he was not a Palestinian, Philistine. So Abimelech wants him to leave. And Isaac went forth from there and rested up in the ravine of Gerarah, which was fairly close to where Abimelech was, and he dwelt there. And again Isaac dug the wells of water, which the servants of Abraham, his father, dug. So he found them and dug them up. And the Philistines obstructed them after the dying of Abraham, his father. And he named them with names according to the names which his father named. And the servants of Isaac dug in the ravine of Gerara and found there a wall of living water, fresh water, spring type thing. And the shepherds of Gerara did combat with the shepherds of Isaac, maintaining the water to be theirs. Because they covered it up, Philistines covered it up, and then Isaac comes back and uncovers the well of his father, and they start feeding all the animals. But the Philistines didn't like that. So they came back, and they called the name of the well Injustice, for they wronged him. Now exactly who the they are and they here, the Philistines called the name, for they, the Philistines, wronged him, being Isaac. You could look at it in different ways, and they called the name of the well Injustice. It could be the ones of Isaac, for they, the Philistines, wronged him. And departing from there, he, Isaac, dug another well. And they quarreled also on account of that well. And he named the name of it Hatred. So here now it's obvious that Isaac named it, so it's probably the first example is probably Isaac. And departing from there, he dug another well, and they did not do combat over it. And he named the name of it Open Plain, saying, For now the Lord widened us and caused us to grow upon the earth. And Isaac ascended. He ascended from there towards the well of the oath, which was Beersheba, which was to the east of the Gaza Strip today. And the Lord appeared to him in that night and said, I am the God of Abraham, the one of your father. Do not fear, for I am with you, and I will bless you and multiply your seed because of Abraham, your father. And now we have the sixth person that God appears to and talks to. The first being Adam, and the second the woman. The third was Cain. Fourth was Noah. The fifth was Abraham, and the sixth here is Isaac. And Isaac built there an altar and called upon the name of Yahweh. And that is the Greek pronunciation for the Tetragrammaton, the 4 Hebrew letters. And to understand that better, if you're interested, you can go to my video on the introduction to the book of Joshua, and it'll explain that. And he pitched there his tent. And the servants of Isaac dug a well in the ravine of Gerara. And Abimelech went to him from Gerara, and Ahozath, his groomsman, and Phicol, the commander-in-chief of his force. Now, these were the same names of the people that came to Abraham. So now, whether these were the same ones, it's a possibility, then just the time passed, but they were still alive. And Isaac said to them, Why did you come to me? For you detested me and sent me from you. And they said, We've seen that Yahweh was with you, the Lord was with you. And we said, Well, let there become an oath between us and between you, and we will ordain with you a covenant. Everything will be peaceful. You shall not do evil with us insofar as we did not abhor you, in which manner we treated you well. And we sent you out in peace. We just asked you to leave, not enough room for us all. Even now, being blessed by the Lord, and that is Isaac and their people were being blessed by Yahweh, Kyrio. And Isaac, I guess, made a banquet for them, and they ate and drank. And rising up in the morning, each swore by an oath to the neighbor. And Isaac sent them out, and they moved away from him with safety. Now the ones of Isaac moved away from Gerar. I would assume it means. Boy, with all these pronouns, it's they and him, and you got to try to figure out who it is. And it came to pass in that day that coming, the servants of Isaac reported to him concerning the well which they dug, and said, well, we did not find any water. And Isaac, called it Oath. On account of the name of this, he called the name of that city Well of the Oath until today's day, Beersheba. And it's still called Beersheba. And Esau was 40 years old, and he took a wife. Now, Esau was Jacob's brother. Now, it's going further in time because of Isaac. Now it stops with Isaac, and it goes, and it's mentioning Esau, who we had, I think it was in the last chamber, about Jacob and Esau being born. So now Esau was 40 years old, and he took a wife. There should be a paragraph break here. Her name was Eudith, the daughter of Veor, the Hittite, and Basemath, daughter of Elon the Hittite. And these Hittites were not the ones up in Armenia, but the ones that were in Canaan. And they were contending with Isaac and Rebekah. So now Esau, it's interesting that and he took a wife, Judith, the daughter of, now apparently these Hittites were the ones it's talking about, who were contending with Isaac and Rebekah, and Esau marries into these people who were basically sort of their enemy. Chapter 27, the Great Deception. Rebekah deceives Isaac. Everybody's heard of this. We'll find out all about it. Chapter 27. I hope you join us. Until then, God bless.